The beginning of the film shows a lady named Johanna walking out of her house with a wrapped box in her hand. She throws the box into the dumpster and turns her attention to her daughter. She sends her daughter to ride her bike and goes back to the house. Claire comes home after a while. As she goes up the stairs, she hears her mother crying. When she checks on her, she sees her mother committing suicide in front of her eyes. The scene shifts back to the present, where Claire is now a teenager. She was startled awake by the nightmare. She's walking towards her school when she sees a familiar car parked outside. In fact, it's her father Jonathan and his friend Carl who pick up trash in front of their school. Claire is horrified at the thought of anyone finding out about her father's business and angrily asks him to leave. The duo leaves and Claire goes back to her school. There she is greeted by two of her friends, Meredith and June, who help hang Claire's poster in the hallway. But while they're working, a popular girl named Darcy comes by and throws her coffee at Claire's poster, ruining it. On the other side, we see Jonathan going through the trash cans again. This time he finds a metal box with beautiful Chinese writing on it. He decided to keep the box and give it to Claire. Claire's patience with Darcy was already running out. When Darcy shows up in the cafeteria and tries to bully her again, Claire attacks her. In the next scene we see Claire at her neighbor DeLuca's house, giving her ice to put on her bruise. They maintained a very friendly relationship, especially since the death of their mother. Claire returns home and her father tells her he has a gift for her. When Claire sees the box in her room, she tries to open it but can't. She had taken Chinese lessons in school, so tried to read what it said, but the words on the box were more complex than modern Mandarin and all she could read were 7 wishes. She is quickly distracted by a message from her friend telling her to check her social media. There she sees that Darcy has uploaded a video of her fight along with some pictures of her father in front of her school under the hashtag #DumpsterDaddy. After seeing this, she becomes very depressed and puts a hand on the box, saying that she wishes Darcy would rot and die. That same night, Claire is sleeping when suddenly the box opens and music starts playing. In the next scene, we see Darcy panicking in her bathroom when she sees large bruises on her leg. She screams as she sees her face in the mirror. Her face begins to rot. The next day the whole school knows what happened to Darcy. Claire's friends tell her that she is currently in the emergency room, and the doctor says that her leg, fingers and face will always be like this. Claire is very disturbed when she hears this. Then she remembers the wish she made to the Chinese box. Claire is convinced that the box fulfilled her wish. She's sitting in her room, staring at it, when she suddenly realizes that she hasn't seen her dog, Max, in a while. She searches everywhere for him, only to later find him dead under her house. After burying her dog, she goes to her Chinese teacher and asks him for help, but he says that this ancient Chinese script can only be translated by an expert. A boy named Ryan, who had heard their conversation, approaches Claire and tells her that his sister can help her translate the words. Claire politely declines his offer and leaves. Claire is sitting with her friends when she sees her crush Paul with his group of friends. As she scrolls through Paul's social media account that evening, she takes out the box and wishes that Paul would fall in love with her. The next day, Claire is standing at her locker when Paul approaches her and starts a conversation. Another wish was granted. The screen changes to a luxurious bathroom where an old man slips in the bathtub and dies. This man was Claire's uncle August. The music box, which had opened again, closes after her uncle's death. It becomes clear that the music box grants wishes, but with each wish it takes the life of a loved one. When news of Uncle August's death reaches Claire, she wonders what will happen to all of his property. His father dismisses their concerns and says they won't get anything out of it. Claire has an idea and wishes to get all of her uncle's property. Seconds later, Jonathan's phone rings and he receives the message that August has left his entire fortune in Claire's name. Claire happily moves into her new home and enjoys life. She is painting one evening when suddenly the box opens and music starts playing. We see DeLuca in her kitchen, chopping vegetables. She throws some of it into the trash can in her sink and turns it on. It makes strange noises, so she leans over to investigate. Then the end of her braided hair gets stuck in it and the garbage disposal turns on. She tries to free herself by reaching out for the switch, but her head snaps back and she dies. Back at Claire's, she watches curiously as the box closes on its own. That's when she decides to ask Ryan for help. Ryan takes Claire to his sister, who helps them translate most of what's on the box. The box could grant 7 wishes, but there were rules that if the person threw it away, sold it, or lost it, all the wishes would be nullified. On the top of the box was the name of the original owner, Lu Mei. They search the internet and find the legend of Lu Mei. In 1910, China was suffering from an endemic disease, and everyone believed Lu Mei and her family were infected, so they locked her in a train compartment and left them to die. Out of her entire family, Lu Mei was the only one who survived. She left the place with a music box in her hand and prayed for 7 days. On the 7th day, the devil answered her call and the music box was cursed. All her enemies suffered and she lived a rich life until she committed suicide. Since there were some things Gina couldn't read, she sends her boyfriend a picture and asks him to translate for her. As they drive home, Claire sees her father collecting trash again. She's frustrated that her father wouldn't quit his embarrassing job even after he became rich. So she wishes that her father would stop embarrassing her, and her wish comes true. But not without a price. The music box opens again. We see Gina in her apartment looking very distraught as she reads an email with the translation she received from her friend. She immediately tries to call Ryan, but her phone has no signal. She goes outside when suddenly the door to her apartment bursts open and she drops her phone. She goes back to her dark apartment, but trips on a carpet and is impaled by a horned statue that she had in her apartment. The next morning, Ryan is on his way to Gina's apartment when he finds her phone on the floor and her body in the house. He immediately goes to Claire, who was enjoying her time with Paul. He asks her whether she has ever expressed wishes to the box and whether the box has ever played music. Claire answers all his questions and asks him if something happened. Ryan reveals that Gina is dead and that he read the email she received with the translation. So every time you ask for a wish, someone has to pay the price with their blood. This scares Claire very much, and on the same day Claire leaves her friend to sit with Paul at lunch. His friends bully her and later post embarrassing pictures of her on social media. After seeing this, she becomes depressed and wants to become the most popular girl in school. Seconds later, she receives a message from Paul asking her to attend a party. Her wish had come true and everyone at the party was paying attention to her. That same night, she is sleeping when she sees someone outside taking photos of her. She tries to follow the person but loses them. Out of fear, she puts the Chinese box in the air conditioning vent and calls her friend. She tells them everything but they assure her that it was just a coincidence, but if she's that scared she should just throw it away. Claire wants to throw the box away, but hesitates and returns it. She lies to her friends about throwing the box away, but before they can ask anything else, Paul shows up and drags her away. In Paul's car she finds a jacket that was very similar to the one her stalker was wearing. Claire demands to see his phone, where she finds all her pictures. She feels scary and angry and breaks up with him. At the same party, Claire's friend Joy narrowly escapes death. The scene switches to Jonathan, who suddenly has a flat tire. He wants to change his tire when suddenly 2 racing cars drive past him and almost hit him. On the other hand, Claire is back together with June and Meredith when Meredith suddenly receives a game notification asking her to kill a monster. She watches the game and goes to the 26th floor. She was in the elevator after finishing her game when the elevator got stuck. She calls her friends, but suddenly the elevator opens. She tries to get out, but the elevator shakes violently before the wires break and he falls to the floor. Meredith is dead. June blames Claire for Meredith's death and leaves her. There she meets Ryan, who tells her the history of the box and how each person committed suicide. He also reads a warning that if 7 wishes were granted, the person granting these wishes would die. Claire asks Ryan to help her. They try to destroy the box, but it's no use. Ryan visits Claire again, but this time they don't find the box in the ventilation shaft. Claire had lost it. The police arrive downstairs and tell Claire's father to vacate the house. It turns out that her uncle hasn't paid taxes for 10 years. Claire realizes that everything has been undone. At school she finds the box in her friend Joy's locker. Joy says she tried to get Claire to get rid of it, but Claire yells at her and they fight over the box when Claire suddenly pushes Joy down the stairs, hurting her. Ryan sees this and tries to stop Claire from making any further wishes, but when she threatens to grant him a wish, he leaves her alone. Back at her house, she is very upset and wants to see her mother again. Suddenly her bedroom door opens and her mother comes in. She is very happy to see them and they celebrate her birthday. But she soon returns to reality and goes to her mother's room, where she goes through some of her mother's paintings. She is shocked to see the same Chinese box in one of her paintings. She realizes that her mother's death was due to the box. In her room, the box opens again and Claire is afraid that she might lose someone else. Then she sees her father and his friend cutting off a few branches in front of the house. Fearing for her father's life, she runs outside and calls out to him. As he turns around, he loses his grip on the ladder, causing his friend to trip and drop the chainsaw on him. Claire's father is also dead. Devastated and alone, Claire uses her last wish to turn back time and return to the day she hadn't found the box. In the next scene we see that Claire returned in time and everyone was alive. She then looks for the box and tells Ryan that she would go on a date with him if he would help her bury the box somewhere safe. Claire is happy and relieved to get rid of the box, but as she crosses the street, she is hit by a car and flies through the air and onto the windshield of another car. With all 7 wishes gone, Claire is dead. In the final scene, we see Ryan preparing to bury the box under a bridge, but he stops and reads the Chinese writing that says 7 wishes on it, and the film comes to an end. So, that's the end of our movie. If you've come this far, make sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe my channel. See you later.